Hello everyone, welcome back to the Driver Trainer channel. I'm glad you can join us for this video on the third topic that I'm about to dive into. And the topic today is going to be keeping your vision active. If you have not already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel because you do not want to miss any future videos. So let's get right into it. Now this topic today is going to build on yesterday's topic, which was about staying aware of your surroundings and looking ahead while you're driving. Because it's not just where you look, it's how you look. And like I said in the last video, you want to be checking random locations, which should randomly change between your mirrors, further ahead of you by about 10 to 15 seconds, as well as your dashboard, along with your keeping your eyes on what's in front of you. In other words, your vision should be active, not fixated. It shouldn't be you drive like this, where you're just looking straight ahead and nothing else. No, your eyes should be moving to the side, to the other side. It should be looking further ahead. It should be looking close in front of you. It should be looking at that rear view mirror on your window, as well as the two rear view mirrors on each side of your vehicle. Your eyes should be moving at all times to the point where you have a full picture of what's going around you within a 5 to 8 second span. So what does active vision mean? Well, let me give you 3 factors of what that looks like. It's constantly moving your eyes. It's checking multiple areas, just like I stated a minute ago, not staring at one spot. And it's taking in information continuously. Now, some of you may be asking, so what's the problem with staring ahead? I mean, that's just how I've always been taught. When your eyes are fixated ahead, what's really going on around you? Well, here's what's really going on. You're ignoring the side activity on your left side, your right side. You're also missing important changes as to what's going on completely around you because things change from second to second. Let me give you some examples of what this looks like. How about not seeing a car that's merging, whether it's an on-ramp, maybe a right turn at an intersection? How about missing brake lights up ahead? You have a vehicle in front of you that you're fixated on. What about the brake lights on the vehicles further ahead of you and further ahead of that vehicle that you're fixated on? Or how about not noticing a pedestrian? When your eyes stop moving, your awareness shrinks. Now here's a question. How should your eyes move? They need to be far ahead, 10 to 15 seconds ahead. And don't forget your mid-distance, that's probably 5 seconds ahead, as well as what's in front of you, all in the same perspective. Also looking at your mirrors, your left mirror, your right mirror, and then back to the center where your eyes need to be looking, and then also your side areas, as well as back to the center. So not only you check your mirrors, but you also check to see what's alongside of you on both sides of your vehicle. And then you bring that vision back to the center. Think of your vision like a constant loop. You're checking, updating, and returning your eyes to the road ahead. So like I said in a previous video, your head is on a swivel, and that helps you to maintain this active vision. So like I said, you need to move your eyes every few seconds and check those mirrors every 5 to 8 seconds max. If it's been more than 8 seconds since you've last checked your mirrors, we have problems, folks. And if you continue to be used to driving like that, sooner or later, you're going to find yourself in a world of trouble. Now, when you are looking at those mirrors, they need to be quick looks, not long looks like, oh, what's going on there? Hey. While at the same time, what's going on in front of you? Just make them quick, back to the road, check the right view mirror quick, back to the road. Every check you make it quick, back to the road. And make it smooth, relaxed, not rush, like, ooh, did I not check that mirror? No, folks, just make it smooth. Just, back to the road, check that mirror, check that dashboard, check everything. And when you do that, you make it nice and smooth. It's easier to build that habit to the point that you're naturally doing it without even thinking about it. Because we want this to be a steady rhythm, not random, not rushed. So what should your eyes be picking up? You should be looking at traffic lights changing. And like I said previously, you want to be looking for those stale green lights. So, what should your eyes be picking up on? You want to look for those changing traffic lights. You want to be fully alert of the stale green lights because usually a stale green light is bound to change and they almost always do. I'm sure you've come up to these traffic lights where it's been green, it's still green, it continues to be green, it's still green, you're getting closer, it's still green, and then as you get to the point where you're almost to the intersection, you're in a range where you could stop if it changes yellow, and guess what? Yes, exactly my point. It changes yellow, and then we need to make a decision. And that's why I've said in the videos to be sure to slow down just a little bit so if the light does change yellow, you are ready to stop, not rushing it to see if your front tires can make that stop bar by the skin of the red light timing. We also need to be looking for brake lights ahead. We don't want to be complacent and think, okay, they're just brake lights, big whoop-de-doo. No, we need to be on alert for brake lights because there's a reason why those brake lights are coming on. And we need to get our brake pedal tapped so we can let people know we are ready to slow down in case that's what's going on. And if things do slow drastically, we are ready to adapt to it. We also want to be looking for merging traffic so we don't run into merging vehicles, especially when people don't merge properly and they want to take their old sweet time and slow traffic down. Now, yeah, granted, it is their responsibility to merge, but it's also your responsibility to make sure you don't plow into that vehicle that's not merging correctly, but that we adapt and we make a lane change if we can safely do so. Now, if you are far enough behind when somebody's merging in, you probably should be lane changing if it's safe to do so, so that way they can safely merge and we don't have issues. Now, in situations where you can't lane change, then you have to do your best to make sure we don't collide into those people, especially on some of the on-ramps that aren't long enough. And I see a lot of older design of merge lanes where they're not very long. And then they only give you so much space to merge at the end of the ramp. Now, I've seen a lot of those to where they have been modified to where the merge lane has been extended with more pavement so people aren't running into these situations. Like if you're in the lower peninsula of Michigan, like on I-94, I've seen a lot of that where you can tell they're short and they've expanded the runway so people can still have more real estate to get up to speed before they make that final lane change. In other words, there'll be an extra lane off to the side with the zipper line, but instead of the standard elongated broken white line method, they're the shorter ones. So to make it obvious, it's not a new lane, but it's an extended merge lane. And then once you get up to a certain point, then it can merge. And by that point, people in that situation should be up to the posted speed limit. And of course, the benefit for those who are still on the roadway is that it gives you more time to make a decision, or in most cases, you're able to pass them before they can even get over, and you have time to see what's going on ahead and gives you more time to plan. So that's a nice thing about how they extended a lot of these merge lanes like that, and I'm glad a lot of states have done that. We also want to watch for pedestrians near the road and even bicyclists. Now, the bicyclists do have a legal right to use the roadway. In fact, it is illegal for a bicyclist to use a sidewalk unless that sidewalk is actually a designated bike path. Now, some of you might be thinking, what's the difference between a sidewalk and a bike path? A bike path is going to be wider. Usually it's going to be striped like a roadway, so you have two directions of bicyclists, an oncoming lane and the lane going in the same direction, and they both can ride simultaneously in different directions without colliding into each other. Whereas a sidewalk, you cannot do that on a bicycle. And you would also not have room for a pedestrian and a bicycle to share the same space on most sidewalks. And that's why it's generally illegal for a bicyclist to be on a sidewalk, unless it's a kid with a parent. And of course, it needs to be a little kid, like a kid with training wheels, with a parent accompanying that child. In that case, most municipalities will allow for an exemption for that. Otherwise, bicyclists are typically forbidden from using the sidewalk. That's why they need to use the roadway, and you are required by law to allow them access to the roadway. In fact, most cities have been going to extents where bicycling is common, where they will post signs that say, state law, provide 3 feet of clearance to bicyclists, or something to that extent, to remind people that this is a heavy bicycling area, to make sure you give them space. And you want to give them 3 feet of space minimum or more, so you're not brushing up alongside of them. Because if you get real close to a bicyclist and something happens, like a gush of wind blows your vehicle just a tad, that could be enough to bump that bicyclist and bump him off on the road, and possibly getting sucked up into your vehicle or another vehicle trying to pass that's behind you. And that can be a problem with catastrophic consequences. So we want to be sure we're keeping our eyes on bicyclists. Also, changes in traffic flow. Just because the traffic has a certain level of flow at one moment doesn't mean it's going to stay that way, especially where a certain amount of traffic is leaving the roadway, but you have traffic entering the roadway, and it's more traffic entering the roadway especially than what's leaving the roadway. Then your traffic flow changes, and that can be more of a congestion point, and you want to adapt for that. So you're not just moving your eyes, you're gathering information on what's going on at all times. So what are the real world consequences of inactive vision? Most people who have inactive vision end up in situations like late braking, which can also lead into sudden reactions. It also causes them to miss hazards, and then ultimately getting surprised. And of course, the getting surprised part is more of an understatement, because most things that happen that people say surprise them really aren't surprises. Either they were there or they were possible, and you're only surprised if your vision is not active. So if you've ever had to slam on your brakes at the last second, there's a good chance your eyes weren't moving enough beforehand. So how does this all connect to control? Let's put it this way: more information equals better decisions. Early detection equals smoother driving, and that's less stress behind the wheel. So the more you see, the more time you have, and the more control you keep behind the wheel. So how do we practice active vision? You want to be consciously moving your eyes at first. You want to be checking your mirrors regularly. You want to make sure you're scanning intersections before you even cross them. Every intersection should be a point where you are scanning and using your eyes to clear it. And clearing means using your eyes to make sure it's safe to cross. And if you need to, especially at traffic light-based intersections, bring your speed down 5 miles an hour less than what you're normally doing. That way you are ready to stop if something changes or if someone pulls out in front of you. And if you have a regular intersection, say it's a stop sign on one side but not on your side, and a vehicle is approaching, just check to make sure that person is going to stop. And don't just pull out assuming they are going to stop. Also, avoid locking your eyes onto one object, especially the vehicle in front of you, which is a bad habit a lot of drivers find themselves in. That right there is a starting point to keeping your eyes moving. You start with the avoidance of locking your eyes on that vehicle in front of you. That's where most people fail with active vision, and that's where most people fail when they end up with issues down the road, with more collisions or incidents or hard braking, etc., etc. At first, you'll need to think about this if this is something new to you, but like I said previously, that eventually it will become automatic and it will become natural. And the goal is to build a habit, not just simply a checklist. So how do you apply this to different driving situations? Well, in city driving, there's going to be more scanning side to side because there's normally more traffic. Watching intersections and pedestrians. How about highway driving? For highway driving, you're going to need some longer forward vision because of the higher speed limit. And you will need to monitor mirrors and lane changes more. How about heavy traffic? In heavy traffic, you definitely want to be watching patterns across multiple vehicles. And you want to definitely keep those eyes moving to avoid being surprised. Because it seems like the heavier the traffic is, the more quote-unquote surprises that seem to appear out of nowhere. So let me give you a key takeaway. Active eyes equals active awareness. And safe drivers don't just look, they constantly see what's changing around them. When you combine this with awareness and looking ahead, you start to build real control behind the steering wheel. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to use your space to your advantage, so you don't want to miss it. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with as many people as possible. And until then, be safe out there. Thank you.